lay out just what Donors Trust is.
Well, they're essentially a pass-through. What they do is they act as a kind of a middleman between what are very large, well-known private foundations created by mostly by corporate executives, like the Kochs, for example, and they direct the money of those contributions to a very large network of right-leaning free market think tanks across the country, including those that you've named. By running it through the middleman, it essentially obscures the identity of the original donors of the folks who have provided the funds themselves. And the organization itself actually makes that clear on its own website, essentially saying people who give money to the organization can avoid being identified or being connected with potentially controversial issues.
And John Dunbar, so the figure is $400 million since 1999. Why is it that all this is just coming to light now?
Well, we kind of stumbled onto it, to be honest with you. We've been at the Center for Public Integrity, that's publicintegrity.org, if you'd like to read our full report on it. We were looking at activities at the state level, and we were noticing a certain continuity. There's a certain sameness to what was going on in various states on these issues, and we've been looking at the American Legislative Exchange Council for quite some time, and we were looking for how these organizations were funded, and this Donors Trust organization kept popping up, and it seemed to be such an amorphously named organization, we couldn't really figure out where it was. So we got to wondering, well, who's funding Donors Trust? And then we backed it up a step, and then we started looking at some of the more better-known right-wing free market foundations, particularly those run by the Koch brothers. The Searle Freedom Trust, for example, is another one. The Bradley Foundation. These are all very well-known right-leaning foundations, and found that an enormous amount of the funds that came into Donors Trust came from those organizations.
John Dunbar, in your report, you speak with the Donors Trust president and CEO, Whitney Ball. She says much of the group's focus is on the state level because of, quote, gridlock at the federal level of government means donors see, quote, a better opportunity to make a difference in the states. Ball also sits on the board of the State Policy Network. Can you talk about this focus on activity at the state level?
Yeah, I think that I don't think anybody would argue with her point that it's hard to get anything done in Washington these days. They've been a lot more successful at the state level, and I think that in Washington we have a tendency to sort of get tunnel vision. We don't think that anything that happens outside of Washington really matters, when in fact the laws that are passed in the states are extremely important. Some of the focus of the Donors Trust recipients have been on specific state issues that, affect all of us. Some of their favorite issues are right-to-work laws in the states, climate issues, renewable energy, as you'll hear from Suzanne and The Guardian, which has done such great work on that, and as well as, tax issues, et cetera. People tend to look at states and what's happening in a particular state in isolation. They don't look around and see that the same thing seems to be happening in other states. And this is clearly a coordinated effort to create state-based think tanks. There's 51 of them that they've funded all across the country to push legislative issues. And then they created their own media empire to support the ideas behind those issues.
Well, John Dunbar, if you could follow up on that, this media group, the Franklin Center for Government and Public Integrity, they receive 95% of their funding from the Donors Trust?
Right, and that was kind of shocking, actually. That is a foundation-financed reporting organization. I have to say that the Center for Public Integrity is also a foundation-financed reporting organization. So, however, we do not get 95% of our funding from any individual donor. Franklin does. The difficulty with that is that, first of all, you have to wonder whether the reporting is is going to be influenced by that single donor. Secondly, they are a C3, which means donations to them are tax deductible, and they don't pay taxes themselves. That's a public trust, by the way. That's the donor's trust is in the same position. If they were not publicly financed nonprofit, they would lose their nonprofit status. By getting all of their money or most of their money through donors trust, they're able to maintain their C3 status as a, quote, publicly financed charity, unquote. And if all of that money came from one person, for example, they'd lose that exemption, or they would be part of, they would have to be absorbed by whatever foundation it was that was funding.
John, in 2009, Republicans, bloggers, conservative think tanks began to cite a report that the Obama administration had pumped billions of stimulus funds into phantom congressional districts, suggesting money intended to create jobs and shore up the economy had been misused or lost. One of the key websites to report this was NewMexicoWatchdog.org, which is almost entirely funded by Donors Trust. The story was picked up by Fox News, like in this report from Stuart Varney.
Take a look at this map, please. The government is claiming jobs created in 9 Oklahoma congressional districts. Problem, there's only 5. Jobs in 8 districts of Iowa. Big problem, there's only 5. Jobs in 8 districts in Connecticut. Again, there's only 5. Jobs in 3 congressional districts in the Virgin Islands. There is only 1. And as you point out, Bill, Puerto Rico. The government claims 17,544 jobs created or saved in 6 congressional districts. There is only 1 congressional district in Puerto Rico.
I don't know if we should be laughing or crying over this. I mean, Puerto Rico alone, 99th congressional district, 98th congressional district, a no-number congressional district. I mean, good Lord.
Yes. Raise your eyebrows, please. Look, it's very bad, very unreliable statistics, and it really undermines all of these claims, these gross claims of job creation from stimulus.
That Fox News report was based on a report by NewMexicoWatchdog.org, one of the many so-called watchdog websites that are almost entirely funded by the Donors Trust. John Dunbar, your response?
Well, I think that the implication of that report was that there were millions and millions of dollars that were being misspent, when the reality was it was data errors. I don't think anyone would defend the government's ability to create accurate databases. They clearly didn't do a very good job on that front, at least on the Recovery Act. However, the implication that all of this money was going into a black hole was actually nonsense. It was kind of a phantom issue about phantom districts, as the Associated Press had reported. A lot of the reporting by these different watchdog organizations that are funded by Franklin has been called into question, and including by the Nieman Center at Harvard. It's called it lacking context, and in some cases actually distortions of the facts.